So the warrant from the FBI is charging Mark with violating the FACE Act. What is the FACE Act? The FACE Act is the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act. It means that it's a federal crime to, quote, injure, intimidate, and interfere with anyone because that person is a provider of reproductive health care. It protects abortion clinics from people outside of the abortion clinic. You can take issue with this law and how it protects pro-abortion people specifically on a higher level than pro-life people. I would take issue with this law, but regardless, I guess that's pointless for this conversation because the law exists right now. And the penalty for a violation of the FACE Act is the maximum penalty would be 11 years in prison. Mark Houck could face 3 years of supervised release after over a decade in prison and fines up to $350,000. Why? What's this charge based on? It's based on something that happened in 2021. In October of 2021, he allegedly attacked a patient escort, meaning a woman who was seeking abortion going into Planned Parenthood. They have escorts to distract the women from the people who are praying, the people who are offering pro-life counseling. Planned Parenthood doesn't want the women to have access to any of that, and so they have escorts that bring the women from their cars into the clinic itself. But it's not exactly what that sounds like. This attack of a patient escort is not at all what the FBI is making it sound like. What actually happened is Mark brought his 12-year-old son to pray with him outside of the abortion clinic one Wednesday, and his 12-year-old son was targeted by a pro-abortion protester, one of these people, these escorts who doesn't want women to have any access to the full breadth of knowledge about their pregnancy and their baby and their options. And Mark's 12-year-old son was subject to profanities being hurled at him by this pro-abortion protester. In fact, profanities that, according to Ryan Murray Houck, as she told LifeSite News, she didn't even want to repeat some of the things that this pro-abortion protester said to their son. But among some of the things that were said right to this child's face were, and forgive my language here, but your dad's an F word, a derogatory word for gay people. Your dad's an F word. To a 12-year-old boy, a child. So Mark said to the man, you don't have permission to talk to my child. Don't speak to my child like that. Back away from my child. And when the pro-abortion protester, the pro-abortion activist, didn't stop harassing his child, Mark walked away down the street. He took his child and they went away from the entrance of the building. But the pro-abortion activist followed Mark, followed his son, and continued to harass this 12-year-old child, saying, hurling obscenities in the face of this little boy. And at that point, Mark shoved the guy away from his son because he was shouting profanities in the face of his child, even as Mark and his son retreated away from the situation to try to avoid what was happening. Mark shoved the guy away from his child. The guy fell back. The pro-abortion protester wasn't hurt, although he later claimed that he was hurt. Mark wasn't ever charged for this. He wasn't ever charged, but the pro-abortion activist tried to sue Mark anyway, even though he wasn't charged. But the case was thrown out of court by the district court in Philadelphia earlier this year. So you'd think that that would be the end of it, right? He wasn't charged. The guy tried to sue. The case was thrown out. He wasn't injured. It was obviously self-defense. This was obviously the pro-abortion activist that was bullying, that was harassing, that was abusing this child that Mark, the 12-year-old child that Mark had with him. But then, of course, we have Merrick Garland in the Department of Justice in the Biden administration. Merrick Garland decided, okay, so since this lawsuit didn't work out for the pro-abortion activist, the federal government is going to pick this up, and they're going to charge Mark for something that the district court threw out.